Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to discuss about a couple of issues that have come about the VR game that we are about to develop or we are currently developing. And those issues are not technical issues, but they're more on the UI UX side of things. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys get immersed into the VR, and then I'll explain some of the issues inside the VR session, and then afterwards we'll discuss about how to go about it. All right, so see you guys inside the VR. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to discuss about a couple of issues that have come about the VR game that we are about to develop or we are currently developing. And those issues are not technical issues, but they're more on the UI UX side of things. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys get immersed into the VR, and then I'll explain some of the issues inside the VR session, and then afterwards we'll discuss about how to go about it.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. So here we are. As you can see, I have updated the actual build to have a better interactivity and visualization on the board unit. So each time now we are pointing to the board unit using either one of the controllers. Depending on which board unit we are pointing to, it's going to change its material color. Also, just a note on the side, the recording with Quest 3, it really depends on the position of your head. So sometimes you might have cutoff. So I'm going to try to do my best so it captures most of the area that we are interested in. Okay, so what I have decided to do is that for this particular demonstration or for this particular tryout, I'm going to go ahead and place the actual board pieces onto the board as such, and as each time you place the board pieces onto the board, it is going to highlight the board units accordingly depending on the actual number of uh, units that it's going to occupy. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this guy over here. All right, so now I want to discuss about the issues. Well, the first issue that is noticeable is the following. As you can see, this particular boat unit right here is occupying 4 particular board units where it's supposed to occupy 3. Okay, this is an easy fix, so we'll talk about how to go about and doing this. Currently, the way this is handled is that each one of the board units have a specific collider associated with them, and the collider will collide also with the board units collider. And if they happen to be crossing the borders and the boundaries, then basically that's the issue. Okay, so that's the issue for these guys. The other thing is that if I go ahead and lay this as a diagonal like that, if I go ahead and put it as a diagonal over there, you see that same thing happens because that's the logic. So currently the logic doesn't take into consideration for your piece to be either horizontal or vertical, right? Vertical or horizontal. So as long as it's touching the board, it's going to determine if that particular board unit is occupied or not. And basically what it'll do, it'll highlight itself. So that's one point. The second point is that same logic, meaning that, okay, if this particular unit now is cross 2 columns, right? So this is also illegal. So if I place the actual board, the piece like that between these 2 columns is going to occupy both of them, right? So we don't want that either. So that's another issue. So one issue is that, let's say we place the piece in a way that it's crossing multiple board units across the boundary, right? So that's a no-no. We'll have to work on that. The other one is that if we place it again in the center of two columns, so again, it's occupying those particular units, but again, that's a no-no. And also check this out. If I go over here, since that's already occupied, it's going to give me a yellow highlight. But then once I remove it, it's not going to do that there. So that's another issue we need to solve. Again, for this particular video, I just was experimenting to see what's going to be the best way to place the boards, going through a UI like we used to do, or actually being able to manipulate it or manipulate the board pieces based on the actual objects, right? The pieces. So those are the issues. One issue is that, okay, once I place a piece onto the board and I point to it, the highlight overrides it, okay? And the other one is that if we place it diagonally like that, also that's illegal, but it does perform its job. So it's colliding and crossing those board units, so it's actually highlighting them properly. It's just that it's not part of the rule. And the other one is that, let's say, if your piece is crossing multiple boundaries, which again, it's illegal, right? So these are the things that we need to take into consideration now, since we are going to have a free form kind of being able to placing our game objects like that. Okay, so that's basically what the issue is. The challenges. It's not an issue. It's just we need to take into consideration. So we cannot have the actual boat be placed diagonally. We gotta make sure that it cannot be placed between columns like that. And we gotta make sure that it cannot be placed upside down as well. Right, so those are some of the things that we need to figure out on how to do. And that's what we'll try to capture in our next video. All right, talk to you guys soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
All right, guys. So here inside Unity, I want to discuss a couple of things as well. So we kind of have an understanding of how the existing scene is put together. So on this particular scene, what I have done is that I placed this five board pieces, the ships that are going to be representing our board pieces. And pretty much each one of these models are going to have attached to them this XR grab interactable component. Okay, so there's going to be an XR grab interactable component and an XR grab general grab transformer. These two components are going to be attached and associated to any interactable that you actually want to move and translate, rotate, scale, and do all types of transformations onto them. So these are two required components if you do want to interact with a particular object within the VR scene. But for our particular purpose, besides doing this, the next thing we need to do is actually also provide additional colliders. So over here, I have gone ahead and for each one of the ships, I have created this particular collider that's going to represent the actual ship size. And this collider will be utilized to interact with the board units, as you will see, or as you saw in the VR, in the actual VR session. So a combination of this collider with a combination of when we switch over to the board unit, and under the board unit, we have an XR simple interactable component attached to this, and this is going to be utilized for us to be able to interact with this particular board unit utilizing hand gestures or the actual controllers. We'll talk and cover about this in more details down the road. But at this particular point, basically what we are doing is that on hover entered and on hover exited, you're just changing the actual materials. That way you can visualize if you're actually pointing to that particular board unit or not, utilizing either the left or the right controller. Now, having said that, there's something very interesting that you might want to be interested in knowing about. So, as you know, all of these components, or depending on the game object, they're going to be on different layers. So in this particular case, our board unit, if you recall, we had it on the board unit layer. These are custom layers that we actually defined throughout the project, and we are going to be utilizing some of them in the VR as well. We might have to change some of them because of the VR enterprise, because of the VR application. So in this particular case, we are just going to keep it the same. So board unit layer. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is a important. This actually took a while for me to figure this out. I wish there were better documentation, or there was actually a better way of configuring this at design time. So if we open up the XR origin and drill down on the camera offset, and if you select your left controller, so this is the actual representation of the controllers. We have a left one and a right one. So if you select the left controller, on the left controller, you are going to have a bunch of components as well. Controller input action managers. You're going to have the XR interaction group and a bunch of other stuff that has been pre-configured and predefined. Generally speaking, you do not have to touch any of these things. However, if you scroll down to the, if you open this up, we see that there's different types of interactors, right? So these are poke interactor, near for interactor, teleport interactor, and affordance callout. So, in our particular case, we are going to take a look at the near far interactor. And on the near far interactor, we are going you'll see a bunch of components that are going to define the specific types of interactors. So we have the near far interactor. As part of that, we have the interaction attach controller. We have the sphere interaction caster, which is basically on the physics layer. And then we have this curve interaction caster. Now, this is the one that is important in our particular case. If you take a look at this raycast mask, uh, by default, it's set to default and UI only. Okay, so this is something that you would have to manually shift over to any other layers that you might have defined, in our case, board unit. So we want board unit to be able to actually be included in this raycasting mask as well, out of the box through the left and right controllers. So make sure that if you have a different layer configured outside of the existing default or the UI that's already implemented and configured by default. Obviously, for more complicated applications, you're going to have multiple layers. Those layers, you would have to reconfigure and redefine them. And also making sure that your filter settings and configurations are done properly. So that's one gotcha that you need to be aware of. Okay, it took me some time actually. Unfortunately, it wasn't straightforward, but it took me some time to actually figure this out, and everything is working pretty good so far. But still, we have some issues. So, all right. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye bye.